Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, a fault on BPL's transmission network plunged residents across New Providence into darkness for hours. Some residents complained their power supply went out last night and wasn't restored until this afternoon. BPL apologized for the outrage, but that did little to cool down heated residents. Jillian Gray reports.
Despite BPL's promise of a better summer than last year, the frequent power outages have some residents skeptical that the power company can keep its word to keep the lights on.
I live in the Michael area. I have 3 kids at home. The power was out from about 12 to 1 last night, and it's still off.
It was one thing after the other for the power company, beginning on Thursday night when a lightning strike to the transmission line caused an outage. Some residents of Western New Providence and Stapleton Gardens complained their power went out after 10 p.m. but wasn't restored until 4 a.m., only to experience another hours-long power outage at 8 a.m. BPL's public relations manager Quincy Parker said they also experienced a challenge on Friday at noon. While performing switching operations at the National Stadium, BPL experienced a fault on the transmission network, resulting in both Big Pond and Blue Hills power plants being offline. That affected residents in the east, southeast, and central portions of New Providence. But the west was not left out. Though BPL initially said the Clifton Pier plant was supporting the Western District, that plant failed shortly thereafter, plunging those residents back into darkness as well. Under the company's post on Facebook apologizing to customers for the outage, many protested the constant blackouts. One user said, "I hope when persons apologize for not being able to pay, the understanding is the same." Another said, BPL starting yearly summer outages, every summer the same thing. Some residents suggested switching to alternative energy, while others called for a credit on their account.
The power bill always high. It affects a lot of people. It affects a business. It affects private persons in their home. It affects a lot of people. And there's nothing done.
Owner of Mac's Convenience Store on Cowpen Road, Miss McIntosh, said after a night-long outage at home, she arrived at her store today only to find that the power was out there as well. She lamented the long hours without power and said the power cut has affected her business.
I sell top-up. I can't sell top-up without the internet or the power. I have a number machine in my store. I can't do that without the power. So, and it's not just this year. They promised us this year they're not going to have power cuts. We're still experiencing the power cuts now.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
The Ministry of Health revealed today that there are 5 additional confirmed cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 129. The newly confirmed cases are a 37-year-old Inagua man with a history of travel and a 64-year-old man from Inagua with a history of travel. The other cases are 3 women on New Providence, ages 29, 34, and 50. Health officials say their travel details are pending. All of the new cases are at home in isolation. The Ministry of Health said investigations are in the preliminary stages and a complete update will be published at a later date.
As the country sees an uptick in COVID-19 cases, Bahamas Doctors Union President Dr. Millicent Bassett's sounding the alarm over the need for more manpower on the medical front. She said if the pandemic were to reach the level of the first wave of cases, more doctors will be needed. Cal Joaquin reports.
These doctors have been on the front line since COVID-19 hit the Bahamas. And now with what appears to be a second wave getting started, Dr. Bassett says more manpower is needed.
When we had unintentional exposure, that set us back pretty far. And the medical team is still trying to recover from that strain, and persons are stretched thin.
Burned out is how Doctors Union President Dr. Millicent Bassett described physicians who have been on the front line in the battle against COVID-19 since March. Those doctors have worked countless hours with dozens of them potentially exposed to the virus. But with the number of cases on the rise, once again, Bassett says there is a concern that manpower will be an issue.
And when you had 30 doctors having to be quarantined for 14 days, that made it very difficult for the 5 that were left in the medicine department. So you can imagine the difficulties they had. Persons are burnt out. That's the reality.
At one point in April, more than 200 healthcare workers were placed in quarantine after potentially being exposed to the virus. That included 96 physicians, 62 nurses, 12 rehab and respiratory technicians, 9 radiologists, and 8 lab workers.
We did not get as bad as we expected. It was not as bad as we had anticipated. But if it becomes that bad, then or those numbers are that high, and we have to have the manpower, increase the manpower, we need to have those persons on staff.
The Doctors Union president says she hopes health officials address the manpower issue before the situation becomes dire. But the relationship between the BDU and the Public Hospitals Authority has been a contentious one over the past year, with the union fighting for a myriad of issues, including maternity benefits and holiday pay. And in the midst of a global pandemic, Dr. Bassett says the morale among doctors is so low that many are seeking employment outside of the country or outside of the public healthcare system.
If you have workers who are overworked, underappreciated, undervalued, you will not get value or the best out of these physicians. Now, we try the best that we can, but the reality is, Kyle, it's hard when you're coming into a toxic work environment and you know that the work that you're putting out goes unnoticed, goes underappreciated, and you get no respect.
Bassett called the situation disappointing, saying it's hard for those doctors to continue to work at optimal levels under the circumstances which they are subjected to.
I think many physicians are trying to find employment elsewhere. They're taking their USMLEs, the UK exams, because the Bahamas is not being hospitable toward them.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, COVID-19 Task Force Coordinator Dr. Merceline Dalregis is stepping down from day-to-day operations, the Office of the Prime Minister announced in a statement last night. The statement noted that OPM was aware of media reports relating to her departure from the task force. The statement read, Dr. Dalregis was appointed in March and agreed to serve until the end of June. She also agreed to extend her service, which will end shortly. Dr. Dalregis will continue to offer strategic advice to the government and the Prime Minister, but will be stepping aside from day-to-day operations. The statement continues, saying Dr. Dalregis has put in place strategies, policies and procedures as it relates to managing COVID-19 and is confident in the new team that will be led by Chief Medical Officer Dr. Pearl Macmillan. The Prime Minister thanked Dr. Dalregis for her national service and will apparently address the matter further in a national address on Sunday. The move comes as the Bahamas experiences a surge in COVID-19 cases. 20 cases have been confirmed since July 8th, 13 on Grand Bahama and 7 right here in New Providence. Atlantis Paradise Island has announced an extended closure of its property. The extension comes as the growing number of confirmed COVID-19 cases reported across the resort's key U.S. markets continues to rise. Atlantis is tracking new information daily and will share reopening updates on its website and through its social media channels. Audrey Oswell, President and Managing Director of Atlantis, said, "We have made the difficult decision to extend Atlantis's closure, prioritizing the health and safety of our team, our guests, and our community first. While we are excited and energized by the opportunity to welcome our guests with warm Bahamian hospitality, we believe that extending our closure is in the best interest of public health at this time." Oswell added, during the extended closure, we will continue to make improvements to the resort, including the renovation of the royal guest rooms. Atlantis first announced a phased reopening of the resort for July 7th, but later changed it to the end of July. It is unclear what the new date will be. Meanwhile, the Department of Education staff memo announcing the September 21st start date for the new school year is not sitting well with leaders of the Bahamas Educators Managerial Union, who said they were only made aware of this after the document was circulated on social media. Berthany McDermott reports.
The memo, dated July 16, 2020, from Education Director Marcellus Taylor states the instructional program for students will commence on Monday, the 21st of September, 2020. However, Bahamas Educators Managerial Union Secretary General Zane Lightburn says the union will only support this if a plan for proper safety measures for staff and students is clearly laid out. A compilation of responses and recommendations from the union to the Ministry of Education reads, the union does not support the reopening of school for face-to-face instructions unless all surety can be provided that members will not be exposed to an increased risk of contracting the virus. And according to Lightburn, their recommendations were never acknowledged.
We have put in recommendations before going back to work, and some of those recommendations seem to have fallen on deaf ear. We represent workers, and the workers of this country need for our union representatives to step up and make sure that their health, which is paramount, not only for them but for our country, because they affect what also happens to our children.
Lightborn added that the union is not pleased with the level of consultation from education officials. Meantime, the memo from the education director continues. Decisions regarding whether students must present themselves at the school's campus will be determined at a later date.
In light of what's happening now and the time of year it is, we know that we're in the mid-summer break. And in a month from now, we can't just be indicating what's going to happen. So within the next few weeks, we are looking to hear, in the next few days actually, the ministry's plan that they want to start with and go forward with, at least for the first part of the 2020-2021 semester, which will be September to December.
The union is also concerned about students' access to devices to take part in virtual learning. This after government announced that it purchased 10,000 devices for that purpose.
We have 50 plus thousand students in our country. The public school system, that is very inadequate. So 10,000 don't begin to address the amount of students that need devices. And then the next aspect of it is those devices being connected to the internet. So at this time, we're expecting that the ministry consult and also lockdown deals.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Bahamasair Executive Chairman Tommy Turnquest slamming what he called half-truths and idle gossip about the airline's ability to meet its financial obligations. However, he admitted that he loses sleep at night over the airline's finances and said Bahamasair has taken a beating financially. George O'Brien reports.
We've lost $10.5 million over the 3 months. Part of March, all of April, all of May, and part of June. That's an average of $3.5 million every month.
Bahamasair Executive Chairman Tommy Turnquest shutting down rumors that the national fly carrier has not been meeting some of its financial obligations, such as paying national insurance contributions for employees. Turnquest said the rumor began shortly after the airline was grounded due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
A lot of it is half-truths. Some of it is idle gossip. And some of it are outright lies. What disappoints me is some of it's being said by employees of Bahamasair. That's what disappoints me more. I lose sleep at night thinking about the finances of Bahamasair. And to hear that's what upsets me.
He added that unlike many other entities, Bahamasair continued to pay employees throughout the pandemic despite not operating.
It disturbs me when I see persons talking about the financial situation at Bahamasair. And we didn't pay this or we didn't pay that. We didn't lay off any of our staff. They were paid as mandated by the government. And the only thing that we didn't do in those cases where persons got an allowance on top of their base salary, they didn't get the allowance, but they got their base salaries.
Turnquest admitted that even now, as the borders are open, the airline is still operating at a loss, as many persons are still apprehensive about travel. He was candid about the airline's low bookings and noted that on one recent Florida flight, the passenger count was so low there was nearly more crew members on board. He said it makes it hard to predict when the airline will recover from the $10.5 million loss in revenue due to the pandemic.
The government has decided that we have to coexist in terms of our health and our economy. And we understand that. Bahamasair has taken a beating financially.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Georgie O'Bain.
Still to come on Our News, an F&M MP pleads with government not to lock down Grand Bahama. Stay tuned.
Hey, but Dubs.
Hey.
Speaking of ideas, though.
Ah!
Yes, solid idea, but.
Here we go again.
Joking, boy?
Murder? That on their passport, so you better name it murder?
Hey, what did you start? Just gotta be a blessing, boy, because ain't nobody that's stupid to come here to lose their money. Lose their money, boy.
Gina T? On your right nipple, Gina? What the last?
Don't what this is, though.
Well, Greasy Brothers, we gotta sing to you. Happy birthday from the Greasy crew. We're gonna buy wine down now and all paper.
As more Bahamians head to the unemployment line, Bahama's Chamber of Commerce CEO Jeffrey Beckles says many Bahamians will have to work some odd jobs and hours in areas they're not familiar with until the economy rebounds. As businesses struggle due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Beckles says some jobs will not be preferred, but a job is better than none.
Bahamians, by and large, must be ready to make some adjustments because the job you had may not come back right now, but it doesn't mean that you can't work. So as we work through finding solutions and finding ways to put people back to work, it may mean that you have a job, it may not be the job that you had. It may mean that you may get 30 hours a week, you may not get 40 or 45 hours a week. But what's important is that we continue to work with our stakeholders to keep people working, and that's where we find our impetus to keep trying.
Borders reopen, but local businesses are still waiting to feel the trickle-down effect of foreign visitors. In the meantime, he says businesses will also have to adjust, and for some, this means layoffs.
Not everybody will survive. We have been doing our best to ensure that we understand the needs of our local businesses, working with our stakeholders and those at the policy level to ensure that we do everything in our power to prop them up, to give them the best chance to survive.
An outspoken F&M MP is urging the competent authority not to shut down Grand Bahama. Frederick McAlpine says the island's residents are hurting more than ever financially.
I think that would be unfair. You're going to lock down Grand Bahama because you had an increase of 5 cases, but yet you didn't lock down Nassau.
Despite at least 13 new cases of COVID-19 on Grand Bahama, McAlpine says Grand Bahamians can't bear the burden of further shutdowns, crippling its already tenuous economy.
How else is the economy going to move? How are people going to survive?
Since July 8th, there have been at least 13 cases of COVID-19 on Grand Bahama. Prior to that, Grand Bahama hadn't recorded a case since May 5th. But the outspoken F&M MP says the island's economy has suffered a devastating blow during the restrictions put in place since March. The new cases raise an alarm, but McAlpine says people still need to be able to make a living.
It's something for us to be concerned about, but I don't think we should be overly concerned to the extent that you want to lock down. And it depends on what you call a lockdown. For 2 weeks, you want to shut us down for 2 weeks, halt the economy again. Of this, I'm not sure.
The Pine Ridge MP says government needs to focus on educating people on social distancing and the importance of wearing masks. In justifying his opposition to restrictions, he contended that there are other factors that need to be considered.
When you have this constant lockdown, the records are proving domestic violence is increasing. Ancestry, predators, ancestry is increasing. These are the things you have to be concerned about. So you have to be concerned not only about people's physical, but their social, emotional, and economic being as well during this time.
Between July 8th and July 16th, there have been 20 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country, 13 on Grand Bahama and 7 in New Providence. That increase in cases coincides with the opening of the country's borders back on July 1st. 7 of the cases have confirmed travel histories, but McAlpine criticized some decisions by the competent authority that he says didn't make sense.
On one hand, you close the beaches to the nationals, but at the same time, you left the borders open to the internationals. And it is in that area where the spike has spread tremendously.
When our news comes back from the break, cancer support groups receive a much-needed donation. Stay tuned.
Hey, but Dubs.
Hey.
Speaking of ideas, though.
Ah!
Yes, solid idea, but.
Here we go again.
Joking, boy.
Murder? That on their passport, so they better even murder.
Hey, what did you start? Just gotta be a blessing, Mike, because ain't nobody that stupid to come here to lose their money. Lose your money.
Gina T? On your right nipple, Gina? Who the last?
Stop what to say, store.
Well, Greasy Brothers, we gotta sing to you. Happy birthday from the Greasy crew. We can buy wine down now, and all of us can share it.
Welcome back. CIBC First Caribbean presenting $70,000 collected from last year's Walk for the Cure fundraising campaign and again pledged support this year with Walk for the Cure 2020. The donation was made to the Cancer Society of the Bahamas and Sister Sister Support Group.
I want to take this opportunity first and foremost to thank the staff of CIBC First Caribbean, their families and friends who year over year, 8 years in a row, we're going on our 9th year, have consistently helped us support this wonderful and important initiative to help cancer awareness and cancer survivors and cancer victims. This year, we were able to raise $70,000. We're very, very pleased to do that. And it would not have happened if it was not for the support, not only of our staff, their friends and family, the public, but significantly is our corporate sponsors.
The Walk for the Cure 2019 goal sponsor is Bahamas Power and Light. Other sponsors present were Alive and McKinney, Bancroft and Hughes. Representatives from the two nonprofits said this donation will go a long way.
So we have Family Island patients coming in, only from the Family Islands at this time, while they're doing their treatment. And so they stay there free of charge, and we have to bear the cost.
Our main thrust is to provide the portacath, which is the device in which individuals use to take chemotherapy. Over the years, we found that there are different areas that individuals need support, but that is our main thrust. That device on a normal basis costs about $600.
Buddy Hield back on the court. That's coming up when Our News returns.
Hey Rev customer, did you know that you can change and add multiple credit or debit cards to your online payment? Simply log into my.rev.bs, sign into your My account, click Pay Now, then enter your card details, and click Save to File. It's that simple. We are committed to providing you with excellent, reliable service no matter what. Stay connected with Rev, anywhere, anytime.
Buddy Hield back on the court after recovering from COVID-19. Marcellus Hall has more.
With his bout with COVID-19 now behind him, Bahamian NBA player Buddy Hield has rejoined the Sacramento Kings in the NBA's playing bubble in Orlando. With that behind him and now the process of getting ready to play basketball, Hield speaking with the press about how things went down. Hield talking about the process of recovery and says he's ready to go.
I'm just happy to be here right now, and I worked out throughout the process, and thank God it wasn't as bad as a lot of people are dying from it. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm an athlete. I've been working out, so I'm ready to go.
Buddy adding that in the future, he has to be more conscious of taking safety precautions.
I just gotta be more careful where I've been, but I know my surroundings better. And I didn't think I got it playing basketball because a lot of the guys who I was playing with, none of them got it. So just gotta know my surroundings and wash my hands and don't put my hands to my face and stuff like that. Wear my mask.
Hield recalling his initial thoughts after finding out that he had tested positive.
I wasn't scared or anything like that. I test positive, and I just was concerned about the people who was around me, like my daughter, my girl and everybody, and my family, and my brother and my cousin, people who I was playing with, who I was working out with. I was just making sure they were right because I didn't want nobody to get infected by it. I don't want to be my carelessness, causing somebody to lose their life or, something like that. So I was worrying with people who I was around, so stuff like that.
As far as the restart of the season, Hield says the Kings will have to adjust to the situation as best as possible.
We professional athletes, we know how to adjust to certain things. Rashawn will be out for 8 days, 7 days now, but it's not like he's not going to be back before the season starts. Season starts July 30th. It's not the end of the world. You have a lot of time. You have 2 weeks to get ready. I think everybody freaks out too much around the social media world. You need to relax just a little bit.
And while the restart is still a couple of weeks away, it seems as if Kings and Buddy are focused on the task at hand. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marcellus Hall.